What's going on? Welcome back to Conversations with a Martial Artist. Thank you for tuning in. My guest today is Yusuf Ali-Taleb, a fantastic martial artist. He's a striker primarily and has won multiple professional fights. He has now transitioned into becoming a mixed martial artist and he currently holds professional titles. Fantastic fighter. Big things in the future for him. Very interestingly, though, he is also a physiotherapist and in particular sort of drills down into the fighting side of things. So anything martial arts and injury related, recovery, we get into all of that good stuff today. Loads of really good advice, lessons, things that you can take away listening to this. So I really hope that you will enjoy it. Fair warning, we were filming this in a live gym. Few technical issues. There are a few points where background noise gets a little loud. Apologies for that. Please bear with us, listen in because there is some absolute gold from Yusuf in there. So I really hope that you enjoy it. Before we kick off, please make sure to support the podcast. It's as simple as share it with someone else, follow it, like, subscribe. It's at CWAMA podcast on everything. Send this to someone as well that you think will benefit from it, but it really just helps the podcast to grow. Without further ado, I will let you sit back and enjoy the conversation. All right, Yusuf, thank you very much for having me down here, Bloodline Gym. Much appreciated. Awesome facility. We had a little run around before we started, and I'm liking it. I'm very jealous. I'm not a local lad, sadly, but anyone that is, I'd definitely recommend it. It's a cool little setup you guys got here.
Yeah, Paul's done a really good job of doing a really great facility. Yeah, it's a pretty good spot.
And you were saying you started here, not this facility itself, I know that you said they moved, but you started here 2005? This is your first gym?
Technically my second gym.
Okay.
I was only in the other gym for about a year, because this didn't exist.
Fair enough, that's good reason.
So as soon as it opened up in 2005, I was pretty much a local boy, so went down to the gym and been here ever since.
Awesome. So that's sort of the start of your martial arts journey, was it? I assume the first gym?
Yes, so did, as most people tend to do, a bit of traditional martial arts before. Yeah. A bit of karate.
The classic.
Yeah, the classic, obviously. I did that for a little bit and then went into Muay Thai. And yeah, I've been doing it since. Parents took me down to the gym. I just decided to continue with it. It wasn't necessarily something I wanted to do at the time, but it found to be quite competitive and I quite enjoyed it. And it was really good fun actually.
Yeah.
Especially at that young age, I had Paul, most people don't remember this, Paul used to teach the kids classes.
Okay.
That's the owner of the gym. But he used to have quite a good competitive session, which is good. And then just decided to stick to it. And I was always relatively local anyway with studies, so there was not really much reason not to be taking part.
Awesome. And were you competing for quite? What age did you start? Sorry.
So I started when I was 11.
Okay.
So
that's a good age actually. Yeah.
So I started when I was 11, but I was training for ages before I actually decided to compete. I was competing maybe 16, 17.
Okay.
So it was a good 5-6 years before you decided to compete. And I was just training in the gym, and I enjoyed it. So I just kept doing it, and ended up having the first competition and decided that actually this was something I enjoyed, and wasn't too bad at it either.
And it's got out of hand from there.
Yeah.
And here you are, pro fighter.
Well, that is you get some people who come in like, I want to be a fighter.
Yeah.
You know? Okay. I didn't have that for ages, to be honest. It was more circumstantial. Like, okay. I'm pretty good at fighting, so we'll continue doing it. And then there's the whole thing of actually really competing, so enjoy the aspect of it.
Cool. And it was Muay Thai pure through and through at that point?
No, so because I've been doing it for so long, I managed to sort of transition in different chapters as such. I did Muay Thai for a while, I went through into class, J class, C class, B class. Then I got to B class and I decided to switch over to more of a K1.
Okay.
Mostly
sorry to interrupt. B class is with elbows with pads, is that?
No, so you can do pro and with them.
Okay.
So, B class, knees to the head,
Okay.
and then you get programs which is something in between.
Yeah.
Now at the time, particularly the style, it was a very punch heavy style. And I was getting to some fights where people were trying to tighten the score with the which is obviously a high score in Muay Thai. But the coach wants us to actually maybe we'll switch over to K1. We're open sport to say, touches, knees, elbows, etc. Don't know what the show said. And so yeah, just continue with that. And so I had a big chapter in that aspect. Loads of fights there, got titles, and then that was between the two basically. One fights there, K1 fights there. And yeah, years later, switched over to MMA, which would have been a few years ago.
And so did you very much focused on one thing at a time, or you were sort of, I take a Muay Thai fight this weekend and then in next month it's a K1 or?
So definitely there was definitely more of a K1 bias, particularly within section. Sure. However, moving over wasn't too difficult. So the gym was actually traditionally a Muay Thai gym to start with, and then it moved into more kickboxing style gym. And then you had people who just liked to blend the two. So you had some fighters who were Muay Thai fighters through and through. That's all they wanted to do. Yeah. You had some guys who just couldn't fight Muay Thai, just wanted to do K1. I was one of the few, or one of the people who wanted to do both basically. So I was always trying to dabble between them. It was more understanding the rule set. And once you understand it, then you just need to pay by the rules.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to ask you, funny enough, because I know that you've sort of jumped between the two. Did you find it hard adapting between the two? Because that's why I've often asked people this that have tried a few different sports.
Yeah.
Because there are just a few nuances and things that, especially when you've done so much of it, you've almost got these responses like hardwired in, right? Yeah. And you're like, oh shit, no, you're not allowed. Like, I can't elbow here, or I can't sweep, or whatever it is that you've got to do.
Yeah, I think it's more just understanding what you can do and what you need to do basically before you go into the fight, and being conscious about what you're doing whilst you're in there. I often find that again, the longer you go on this journey, you become a lot more conscious when you are in the ring. You decide what you want to be doing, as opposed to working on autopilot.
Yeah, you're thinking a bit more.
Yeah, thinking a bit more, trying to set things up. So I found that actually I adapted quite well to it. But I can definitely see and have seen people nearly throw an elbow in a kickboxing fight.
Yeah.
We'll pull that
twitch.
Yeah, exactly. Or actually just land it like, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So it's kind of too late. Yeah. The damage is done. You know? But yeah, I think it's more about just being conscious.
And is that something that just comes from like repetition of being in that high adrenaline environment? Do you get like cooler each time?
Yeah, I think I'm much cooler now compared to probably at the very start. I think, fortunately, I think because I was training in the gym with really high level fighters from a young age, I felt like it was all fun and games for a very, very long time. And even with a lot of my fights for the first period or even half the period, I never really saw it as fighting. So I'm just going for a spot against someone without a head guard who hits hard.
Yeah.
So for me, it was always just more playful. As opposed to, I need to go fight this guy, you know? And along with that, it was more about just deciding actually to make sure you can
Yeah, so you're not sort of shit there as much as you would traditionally if you're just sort of take it a bit more relaxed.
A bit more relaxed. And with that, fortunately, throughout the years, I've always thankfully been known to have quite calm stuff. Try to be as smooth as possible when I'm in there, and it's not too erratic. Yeah, and I feel like because of all the training, like I said in the past, that made a massive difference to just going in there quite relaxed.
Yeah, that's a big thing. I think I've had this conversation with a few different people, and I'm always curious from like a fighter's mindset as to what tends to help them most. Because some people like they really want to get amped up and hate this person and like I'm going fucking frenzy at them, and then some people are like cool, like you could barely wake them up, you know, and they're like that. So I always find it interesting to see the sort of different mindsets and how that works.
Yeah, everyone is really different. You do need to understand who you're dealing with. I now coach as well as fighting, and therefore all the people I've coached various fighters, and everyone has their own way of warming up, their own particular things that get them amped up, and some people just need a conversation, like myself, and I've been with my coach for a long time, and you just need to speak. So often if you're watching my corner work, we just have a very casual conversation. Before we go into the cage or the rings that I pick, so you need to wake up, man. I'm like, cool, I'll wake up, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas others, need to get slapped to the knee.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
really be riled up to go up. Like
your man, Brad Pickett with his slaps.
He does. You know what, actually, Brad's been in the corner for a few of my fights now. And last fight was the first time he slapped me. So I can have
a rite of passage.
I have a discussion with Brad. Like, Brad, we can have a conversation. Yeah. Let me know what you want me to do, and I'll do it as opposed to slap. But it was interesting because at the moment it wasn't hard stuff. It was like,
yeah.
He woke me up, wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, can't you wait?
I'm good, man.
Yeah. So yeah, but everyone has their own way of operating.
It is funny seeing Brad. I went to the Cage Warriors London a few weeks ago, and watching him come out. Oh, bumped into you there.
Yeah.
But yeah, watching him come out here every time, and some of the slaps he's like, you can tell there's some people more into it than others. And some of them he's laying in thick. I'm like, whoo.
Yeah, they're not light. They're not light at all.
Not from a man like Brad Pickett.
No, he does like this good stuff. Yeah, I don't think it's ever happened, but imagine worst case scenario, he slaps and blocks the fighter just for
yeah.
It's not really.
Yeah. But speaking of sort of Brad Pickett things, I know you're training a lot more now. You've dialed in on the MMA side, because obviously traditionally a striker in the Muay Thai and the K1. How did you find that adaptation to sort of introducing the grappling? Have you done any grappling at that point, or? Well,
not really seriously. So I we try to dabble and do a bit of grappling here and there with friends. But not really. It was mostly just no wrestling at all. But never consistently or seriously enough to do much of it. I had friends who often were quite good at it, so I'd always just try to have a bit of a roll with them and tap quite a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, so since transitioning over, I need to find a gym which had coaches, facilities, teammates, and people was a place for me. So yeah, heading over there's definitely a much more of a wrestling focus, which I think was quite useful. And naturally going into MMA, the obvious hole was the groundwork.
Well, that's it. That's what people are going to want to try and do to you.
Yeah. I mean, if I was fighting myself, that's what I'd probably need to do with it. So yeah, so I decided to go there and do a lot of grappling basically. So I grappled quite a bit. And for the first few MMA fights in particular, didn't necessarily show any of it. The last couple of showed some grappling or anti-grappling and such, which is showing the progress over the years. Plenty more work to be done, as always. Yeah, but it's a great team.
And how long ago was it that you switched over? You said a couple of years.
Yeah, it would have been. My first MMA fight was 2022.
Okay, yeah.
So it would have been March 2022. So just over 3 years ago. And I didn't really train much beforehand to go into that first fight because we had a really lovely time enough.
Fair enough.
We weren't really able to train very much. So it was more of let me fight a bit.
Have a go.
Have a go. Basically, have a go. And had a good showing in the day. So.
And was that amateur? You went in? Because were you pro kickboxing by that point?
Yeah, so I was fine pro for a while. Before transitioning on, but it's probably sensible just going and see what the case is like. Now, compared to most, I didn't really have a reason to run at all. My first fight was against Rafa Colonese, I think it is. That was a Rafa.
Yeah, the name rings a bell.
Really renowned black belt, BJJ black belt. And he was also looking to fight. So no one really wanted to fight him, no one really wanted to fight me, so we just checked it. And it was sort of a 90s throwback fight.
Yeah, it's a strong clash of styles.
Exactly. And yeah, he definitely maybe wanted to wake up. But he came out really strong. Good submission first. I got the win in the end. And most people won't be fighting that caliber of confidence when you're like that. And to be fair, that's okay. Each time I went into a fight, speaking to the motor, I always said that actually I am experienced, very easy to find my fights online. And I'm happy to have people fight. I didn't necessarily want to build up, I was more trying to get a feel of the cage and stuff.
Yeah, difference. Yeah.
And the difference. But didn't have any really. And the 3 rounds didn't really suit me. So turned it pro, as well as finding different matchups, turned the pro was quite useful. And the rounds are slightly longer. You can actually move elbow people.
Yeah.
Which again is adding more options for myself as opposed to bringing it around where in the amateur scene, if you get taken out once,
pretty stuffed.
Yeah,
You got to be rapid getting back up.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really sort of grappling heavy or grappling focused style when it comes to the amateur MMA, which is okay. You can learn a lot from it, but it's decided to switch over.
Fair enough. And how far into that? Like, did you have a couple of AMI fights and then go, or just the one? And
No. So I had 3 total. So it spanned across. So it's been about 3 years now, just over 3 years, and across 18 months I managed to get 3 fights. Not feel like a try.
Yeah.
In my mind, I wanted to get to 5 amateur fights, and then switch over. I was just struggling to get matches in all honesty, so decided to switch over after 3. And then now I've had 5 pro MMA fights. Thanks
So you got on the belt on the last one, didn't you?
Yeah.
The last one?
That was the last one. Yeah, won the last one. Got the fight star championship like the time, which is now 5-0, 3 stoppings, it's going right so far.
Yeah, there you go. Can't say much more than that. Fair play.
Yeah, it's going well.
And in terms of the amateur stuff, it's quite funny because you are right. I understand where you come from with the matchups, because that's the nightmare you have with amateur, is you can have people like yourself that are, multiple time champion kickboxing and things having their first thing, and then you can have some guy who's been doing it 18 months and it's like, oh fuck it, let's have a go. Like, oh Jesus Christ, what a nightmare matchup.
I think there should be a bit more sort of rulings around it, in honesty. Not to say I don't think you shouldn't be able to. I just think that the matches people should be more transparent.
Yeah, that's it. There are some shady people about trying to make their rate. Oh yeah, no, I've only had one MMA fight, and it's like, oh, but I've had 40 kickboxing fights or whatever.
And to be honest, at that point, I feel like you're just stroking your own ego. If you're not being open and transparent about it, because I think they have the right to know who you're going up against or who they're going up against. And I think if you're transparent with the promoter, with the person you're fighting, then at least they know what sign up for. And it doesn't mean that you can't be defeated, but it just means that they really know who they're going against. Because I think the worst thing is you go in there with someone who you are better than sort of skill-wise, and then after about 30 seconds they realise it too, and then they just cut up, and then they finish them themselves. Well,
that didn't help anyone.
It's more so that they quit rather than anything else. And it's not that it's a bad thing, these were out of their depth at the time, and you can't necessarily put it on the fighter as such. It's more of, especially at the amateur level, it's more on the fact that the person who was fighting, i.e. fighter A, wasn't transparent about. And we've had it. I've had it with in terms of I know that people are fighting quite experience, but when I'm coaching, you get people who put me in to 4 fights in, and then you look at the other guy, you've had more than 4 fights. And it's not that you want a match to be defensively, but you have to make it a fair match. And then you do your research, like, okay, this guy's been in loads of fights. Actually, I was in Intercup not too long ago, last week before, and there's I won't name him, but he's good. He's very good. But there was a guy he fought at least 5 years ago.
Right.
At an Interclub.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on.
That's the one you do fight. Interclubs bugs me a bit, but then I find myself on the fence about that, because I'm like, well, I can see an Interclub being I'll jump in at the weekend, keep sharp, if you're strict on the light contact and you're not being a dick.
Yeah.
But there are so many times you see these people that you're like, you are clearly like borderline a pro, and you're turning up here and you're still throwing everything 100% at this newbie who's like, I'm just here to try and have some dad of 3 that's just trying to have a go.
Yeah, I think that's the issue. I think
Yeah.
that's the issue, more the latter. There's no control.
Yeah.
I mean, I could jump into an Interclub tomorrow, and I think everyone will have a very pleasant experience.
Yeah.
Because they have control for it. But
that's it.
Again, I think it comes down to stroking
Yeah. It's a tough one, but I mean, there's only so much you can do about it. It comes down, like you say, to people's egos and how much of a dick is the individual person.
Yeah, I'd say so.
It's not much more to it than that, and even a promoter can't really handle that too well.
No, of course.
But the main reason I wanted to sort of sit down and chat with you anyway, is you've obviously got quite a unique perspective as a very active professional fighter across quite but also you're a physio and the fighting physio. Which, but do you ever use that as is that your nickname as well, or is that just a brand?
It's more of a brand thing, and only because I'm really on the game anyway.
Yeah, fine.
Yusuf Ali-Taleb plus Yusuf Ali, the fighting physiotherapist.
That is a mouthful.
Is a bit of a mouthful. But if I had a short name, I'd probably go with it.
So you go no fighter name.
No fighter name.
No nickname. Yeah. I always wonder about that as well. Again, sorry, going off a bit of a tangent, but picking a fighter name is a nightmare to me. I can't think of anything worse than having to do that, and then you're stuck with that for for life.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to be honest, most people, particularly in the fighting sport, just call me Eddie. And have them for ages. And frankly, it's part of my set.
Yeah.
But there was definitely a lot of confusion because when we went to MMA, I thought that's the first thing. So, but yeah, no, thankfully it's part of my set. So a lot of the branding, of my t-shirts, etc. just usually set out in it. And yeah, thankfully off that sort of going from tangent kickside a broken line after that as well.
Oh, sick! I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's again Ali, but it was shortened to be Aspire, Inspire. I want to have a big positive impact for both of us.
Oh, that's awesome! I'll make sure I stick some of the links. Is that just on the website or whatever?
Yeah, website aspireleadinspire.com, Instagram handle, which is very active. Get on there.
Awesome! I didn't even know that. There you go. I haven't done my research properly, but that'll be in the description for everyone as well. I'll check that out myself. Yeah, going back to the physio side of things. Super interesting perspective on it, I think, because as a active fighter especially, you'll know a lot more than people do on paper. I know there are incredible physios and coaches and things out there, but it's quite an interesting idea to me that you are there sort of in the mud with it and doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it's definitely gives me more of a unique perspective. I'm definitely the only one as such, but I think there's few and far between physios who are fighting to the same level that I fought and have the same experience.
That's it.
You will have some who fight at a slightly different level, different types of whatever else, which again, credit to them. I just think it's very different to be a professional fighter and a physiotherapist. Because as soon as you do become a professional and an experienced professional, you understand that there's a lot more to it compared to just rocking up one day. Again, everyone has their own fight they know to do, and it's the biggest fight that they're dealing with at this moment. But as you become more and more seasoned professional, you have to deal with weight cuts, which has an impact on injuries. You have to deal with structuring your training properly, because now this is your full-time gig basically. And there's a lot more involved in it. So, thankfully, I've been a physio since 2018. Prior to that, I was working in the hospital as an assistant. So I had 2 years before being a physio, which is quite cool. And yeah, it's definitely helped have a lot more of an understanding of the body. Being able to train in an appropriate way, in a smart way, to reduce my risk of injury. And I think there's like 2 groups of injuries: that your controllable and your uncontrollable injuries. Thankfully, controllable injuries I've had for a very long time, based on training load and structuring my training in the correct way. The uncontrollables, they're just random things.
Yeah, nature of the beast.
Exactly. But saying that, having an understanding of that is quite useful, because knowing what to expect and not necessarily freaking out is quite useful. I actually tweeted my idea a couple of days ago. It was like, okay, this could be bad, but it may not be bad. And just being able to ration out rather than being emotional response. Well, let's see what it's like over 24 hours, let's check this, X, Y, Z. And having the understanding from the physio perspective there. And a lot of my physio experience in the NHS and outside of it now does help me be a better fighter and also a better coach.
Big time.
Yeah, also because one, to understand the body, two, understanding why you're doing this. So, in physio, something known as clinical reasoning, which is basically you need to, whatever you do, you need to have a reason.
Yeah.
Which I feel like has definitely helped, one, my coaching style, two, my ability to fight. Why did I just throw this?
I see.
And there needs to be a reason for it. Because often you'll speak to fighters and other people for it because of the
Yeah.
And coaching helps with it. Because coaching, you get serious stuff. Why do you do this? helps understand what you know and what you don't know more so. But yeah, clinical reason from the physio perspective definitely helped with why I'm better.
Oh, that's good. I like that. Might have to pinch that.
Yeah.
Clinical reasoning. I like that. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, when you say like, yeah, think it through logically. Like, what is the rationale for it? And yeah, it probably raises a few questions as to. I mean, half of what I'm doing when I'm fighting, I'm like, well, that was stupid. I don't know why I even bothered with that.
But you know, what it is? Sometimes it's not that. Not doing intentionally, it's just something you don't fight.
You just do it.
You know, you just do it because your body just wants to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's then it's the process of learning all the bits of this. Like you want to learn unconsciously, and you want to
unconscious competence.
Yes.
Conscious incompetence.
Yeah.
Whatever the other one. Conscious. No. Shit. Whatever.
I think we're tweaking like the same thing.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. I don't have the specific language of my brain. It's basically knowing you don't know anything.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, not knowing that you don't know anything. Knowing that you don't know anything. Knowing that you know something,
But there's more to it.
and there's more, and then not knowing that you know everything. That can't be right.
We'll have to get it. We'll get the time.
Yeah, this is where I need a proper setup. I need like who's the guy from Joe Rogan, a young Jamie over there, give me some information.
Yeah. Jamie. But you can get the idea. But I think that should be the journey of learning.
Yeah.
But not everyone adopts that when it comes to martial arts. But tying that with why we do things, or why do you just want to jab the way you throw it, and what reaction that can cause, and if that causes A, B, and C reaction, what can you do based on that? Again, being able to logically reason why you do things does take a bit of time and experience to remove the emotion about the situation. Again, quite calm and methodical.
Yeah, and actually sort of cognizant about what you're doing.
I'm being present at the time, which is again really difficult to try and take care of.
Yeah. That's half the art. That's the skill, really, isn't it? I suppose when you look at like the composure of a top level fighter versus your day one debutant, you're like, well, that's the difference. It's the composure.
Yeah.
There's no tension like that the whole time.
Yeah.
It's being calm and like seeing stuff. Isn't it?
Yeah, I'd say that and tying in fight IQ as well. But again, fight IQ comes down to why you do things, you know, and being able to adapt and being conscious in something. I definitely find that the physio perspective makes sense.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that as a thing, but I guess absolutely, it's the same sort of skill when you're working through it. And as a physio, what sort of stuff do you do? Is it just the injury stuff, or is it the like strength and conditioning stuff as well? Because I know they sort of go hand in hand, right?
Yeah, they do. So, because I've been part of the sport for a while, I've worked in people, thankfully, got a lot of experience and a few courses as well to continue to learn. But we do injury assessment and diagnosis and treatment. Then we look at performance, and that comes down to the strength and conditioning. Strength and conditioning as opposed to just one. And then recovery, with things such as your massages, your cold plunge, sauna, etc. And then as a clinic, we try to offer a 360 service for anyone who is a fighter, non-fighter, who just wants to improve their health and performance. So that's really what we are, a 360 service for optimizing.
Well, that's what I was going to say as well. Do you specialise in just treating fighters? But no, it sounds like no is the answer.
No. Basically, we are happy to work with anyone who has a musculoskeletal condition or a MSK condition, such which is your general day-to-day stuff, so your shoulder pain, back pain, etc. With a particularly interesting combat sports, the team's expanded where we are able to work in other areas such as runners and that sort of stuff as well, as opposed to just fighters. But I think the core of it, being myself, as part of the fight community, it made a lot more sense to go out of sport. Thankfully, the other physios who are part of the team as well come from a very similar background. Got one who is a GP, a wrestler.
Oh, sweet.
So again, really credentialed in another who's BJ black belt, etc. So definitely really understanding the body, the mechanics and the injuries related to wrestling, jiu-jitsu and striking. It's definitely something we've got covered. And like I said, we've got other issues involved as well. We've worked with the other areas as well. But yeah, anyone who's got an injury as such,
Good man, fair enough. And that's quite interesting to me as well that you've got guys from different backgrounds. Because one thing I've always been curious about, do you find different styles of martial arts have different injuries that they're more prone to?
Yeah, definitely. So just off the top of my head, let's run through a few. So let's say boxers typically will get a load of shoulder and face issues.
Yeah, big
wrist issues a lot of the time. And if they are unseasoned, not as experienced, they'll get knee or Achilles issues. Mostly, a lot of the time they're going from old school approach based on the amount of running they're trying to do when the boys are used to it. You then get, let's say, Muay Thai fighters, kickboxers, bum contusions, so basically bum bruises a lot of the time.
Makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. Rib fractures, rib injuries, strains of intercostal muscles, such as the muscle ribs. You don't often get too many ligament injuries with Muay Thai kickboxers traditionally, but you will get overuse a lot of time. A lot of skipping, you get more, you're quite used to it. More knocks and bumps and bruises basically.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu, ligaments are injured significantly in all areas, particularly the knees, I'd say.
The knees, yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, I mean, I'm no physio, but I could have bet any money that you would have said knees for jiu-jitsu guys.
It's because people just, so ligaments attach from bone to bone, and it's meant to be working on your stability. Now, you've got some areas such as your elbow, if you got something in an arm but you pull it straight, there is a solid end field. So you know you can't go any further, and if you want to, you're going to stand there. You know. Things like heel hooks, which is, in my opinion, inappropriate names, in that people put on a heel hook and then knee blows out. Because everyone's saying, oh well, my heel feels fine. Your heel will feel fine. And if it doesn't feel fine, it's because your knee's already blown out. And they continue to hold on to your leg. You know? But people just continue to go. So particularly with knees, there's not really a hard end field. They just go, and there's as soon as that happens, knee. So I feel like just people aren't aware of the body, so they just pull and straighten the knees.
Big time, especially the knees. And I've had a couple of conversations about that as well, because the knees is because they've only got a very small degree of motion on the knee itself, right? Yeah. And I think understanding that changed it massively for me. That's why I'm such a coward when it comes to leg locks. when I'm training it, I have no leg lock skill myself, but I get caught in them all the time. Yeah. And I'm out. Pretty much as soon as anyone's vaguely near me, I don't know enough what's going on, I'm out.
I think that's the right decision though, to be honest. It's like, you need to have good trainers who you can trust, who you can run through those things with. Otherwise, if you're unsure, then just tap them. Because again, you've got a life to live. To get to work and this, that, there's no point in going at uni, turn your ACL, your MCL, etc., being out for nearly up to a year without doing any things that you want to do. And it having an impact in your life just because you took a roll on a Friday night and someone wants to go home happy. You know?
Yeah.
Say they got the win.
I doubt that guy.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that is interesting though, because I've often wondered about different styles. So you're absolutely right. I can see all of those things being an issue for each of those aspects. And so I'm assuming then that you'd adjust what sort of thing people are working on based on the sport itself.
Yeah, definitely. So let's say someone did tear their ACL. You're going to go for a very similar start in that phase, i.e. get your range of motion back and build some strength, solid strength around it. But a sport-specific phase is going to be quite different for a wrestler, for an MMA fighter, for boxing, for a Muay Thai fighter. In that wrestlers typically need to be dynamic in all range of motion, they need to be loaded, their position need that ability to bend their knees. So you can get them in more of a barefoot position and start loading using similar positions that they need to be. They get a Muay Thai fighter who traditionally are a lot more static. You want to be able to move as well on both sides, but they don't need to be as dynamic as a wrestler or as a boxer.
Sudden change.
Exactly. Or a footballer, for example. So it's just bearing in mind the ability of the person and what they require from the sport. But Muay Thai fighters, they need to have the physical and mental confidence in blocking kicks.
Yeah.
So the fact that someone's kicking them, that's going to be a big mental barrier to get over. kicking the independent thing. Getting this kick back is a massive, particularly in Muay Thai where there's a scoring element to it. So we need them to be able to kick with both legs, not just the leg they're injured. More times than not, they'll be confident kicking with the leg they're injured as opposed to the other. Because the other leg is the one actually the right leg. They've injured it, they need to stabilise and keep it away.
Right, yeah.
So that's where the confidence is. They don't trust the leg.
Yeah.
So we need to build that into it. So then they can kick with both sides rather than be a one-sided fighter. So taking those things into consideration definitely plays one really.
And you mentioned there at the start that you sort of do it in phases then? So is that's sort of the same thing? So you said something about the mobility or the sort of range of motion?
Yeah, so again, talking about if you have a surgery, you are going to make important. So before you do any strengthening, you need to build a range. You need to strengthen through. This is a good general tip for SSC or anyone else. Don't just do your mini squats, just do your full range. But you need to reduce swelling, increase the range of motion, get it back to normal before you start building strength. As soon as you start doing it, you start to walk properly, and then you go into bodyweight exercise, then moving into your strength exercise. And after you do that, where things are quite controlled, you need to add more of a dynamic element to it. So when you're leaving the floor, let's say going for maybe some walking lunges, something a bit more dynamic, some step ups, we start to see. And once you're comfortable doing that, probably your ass is quite hot, you then move into more specific basis. So then you may get them, let's say, you get a kickboxer who wants to get back to running. You get them doing a bit of running, in controlled phases. You get them doing a bit more shadow boxing, you won't necessarily get them doing the sparring or any contact, but you may get them actually just getting the bag for a couple of minutes at a time, building confidence until you get one, they're taking off the itch of to do what they want to do, which is a massive thing, and two, they're actually building the new strength for what they want to do.
Yeah, you're actually putting the joint or whatever's injured through the thing it's going to be doing.
Exactly. But it's more in a gradient control way. Often people don't take it seriously enough, and they jump into it, and they often re-rupture if it's a knee or re-injure.
Well, that's actually something I wanted to ask you about, because one thing I have always been curious about is, especially as like a pro fighter, is how you deal with rehab for injuries as an active professional. Because especially, some MMA guys or even like boxers and things, they're fighting all the time. Thai guys are the worst for that. Every weekend, right? Is how do you sort of deal with that rehab side of things and get people back to competing as soon as?
So it does come down to what type of injury they have.
Yeah.
So understanding the type of injury makes better understanding how long it's probably going to take. Then decide, alright, is this going to take them out of a fight? Is it not going to take them out?
Yeah.
And can we? And then at the end of the day, you can recommend whether they should fight or not. But they are all adults, more times than not, and they will decide what they want to do. And you need to give them the risk and the pros and cons to do it.
Yeah.
And then after that, you let them make the decision, and then you just crack on with whatever you want. What I would say is, if it's a significant, I'll heavily recommend they don't do it.
Yeah.
And if at that point they want to, then
what can we do to mitigate?
Exactly. But saying that, having a good, being in a position yourself, working with the coaches, and also being a fighter, it does add credibility to my opinions.
Yeah.
And because I kind of understand what is required of this person, because I want to understand, and whether they should be able to do it. Having a good relationship with coaches or coaching staff does allow the consistency with the same message. Because then the coaches will be like, okay, you're not fighting. Because it's not sensible. But saying that, I think training, managing a training load, or managing the training lows and building the training structure, being consistent is one of the best things I'd say for training consistently and regularly. Because your body is adjusting to it, and there's no change. One of the worst things you can do is have massive spikes in intensity throughout the years. Not doing much because you're not fighting, and then for 6 weeks just ramping up your training schedule and then not doing anything. That
like going to fight camps.
Whereas if you try to take an approach of having a fight camp all year round with slight tweaks in intensity 2-3 weeks after the fight, that is less likely to cause yourself an injury. So trying to opt the mindset of fight camp 365 is basically the best way of reducing risk of injury.
Okay. And so then from the injury perspective, if you're not necessarily dealing with an injury, but we're talking about injury prevention, how do you work that into your schedule with either fight camps or the fight camp 365 type?
Yeah. So what you can do is identify areas that are slight weaknesses for yourself.
Yep.
Whether that's shoulders, hips, knees, etc.
Or your sport, I guess,
or your
going back to what we're talking about.
Exactly, for your sport. And then trying to build it into your warm-ups for your sessions.
Okay.
So, if for example, I teach the fighting class, and often I get them doing their own individual exercise programs. And sometimes fighters just don't want to do their exercise. But sometimes they're like, oh, I'm not injured, so I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And then when they're injured, they
do
don't
that
do
a lot of the time.
Yeah. So the gunning is actually built into their warm-up routine. I teach, they'll do a bit of skipping and then they'll do like a pre-hug section. 15 minutes of, as part of their warm-up, they're still getting warm, but reducing risk of injuries to the knees, to the knees, to the shoulders, to the hips, etc. And we'll cycle it based on whether they're between class or something, or any sort of particular injuries they have. But even if they don't have any injuries, then it's just trying to boost their performance. If you're working on building their tendon strength, building their muscle strength, these things are not really going to be working in the gym. Understandably, sometimes you just don't have the knowledge base to know how to work on a smaller muscle group, etc. So, yeah, it's one of those things where I have the ability to try to improve performance in that sense. So I'm trying to impart that. And going off of that, as well as the warm, we've actually started doing a class here, which is a good strong class. So again, any individual who wants to improve their tendon strength, joint strength, smaller muscle groups which don't typically work, they can go to that, because before, again, you get people who train like fighters who don't want to fight, so they have the same amount of training frequency and intensity, and are picking a very similar injuries to fighters. So because of the same thing.
Well, that's it. They say half the injuries come from the training. It's not the fight itself, is it? Yeah. Apart from like the guys, like you say, where you got the welts in your legs and stuff. But the amount of injuries you pick up in a training camp and just training in general is the problem. So that makes a lot of sense to sort of build that into it.
Yeah, it's just most fighters don't go into a fight uninjured. There's always something that goes on, and it's just trying to. My role is often trying to get them through the fight. And especially if it's significant, you get into 2 weeks before the fight. We can't do anything right now in terms of solving this issue. Yeah. We're going to get you through the fight, we're going to reduce your pain levels, get you training as best as you can. And then after that, we need to really look at it. Now, for that same individual, if they had a fight scheduled in another 4 weeks' time, I would get you through the first fight. I don't think you should do the second fight, you need a bit more time. But again, having a good relationship with the coach is definitely helps.
Yeah, big time. And I like what you're saying about the sort of building in mobility and strengthening, and because you're right that people go, oh god, I need to get a bit fitter, a bit stronger for whatever sport, and then I'll go to the gym and just do all the generic gym shit on machines and stuff. But you're right, having that specialist knowledge. I mean, some of the exercises that I've seen and come across on that sort of thing are stuff that you wouldn't be thinking unless you know what you're doing. You're like, oh, I'm told to hit this tiny little muscle on the back of my shoulder or whatever. Yeah. It's an interesting one.
It is, and again, each of the sports can have their own sort of muscles that need to be strengthened just to be interesting. Having them
I think classes like you're saying, like that one, that I've already forgotten what you called it. Move strong. I think that's a fantastic and something that all places should definitely adopt, because you do see so many injuries, and there's all these just little things that will make a difference.
Yeah, and often when people come to the classes, one of the common things they say is, working in an area I'm not going to work with, and the other thing is, actually, this is really useful for me, and I won't make time for it myself, so I just go to the class and get it done.
Well, that's the big one, and that's why I was asking about the fighters, because it's like, especially a pro fighter, like, you've got so many plates to spin. Like, I've got to do MMA, especially, I've got to do my wrestling, I've got to do my jiu-jitsu, I've got to do my striking, I've got to do my strength and conditioning, I've got to do my resting, my recovery, I've got to do my running, I've got to do this and that. It's added mobility and injury prevention and stuff as well as hard. So anything that you can do to sort of build it in together, I think is got to be a massive plus, right?
It will be, and doing that extra bit will help you perform so much better in all of you things. But doing like 10 minutes is part of your one, 3-4 times a week, that adds up. Rather than trying to carve out half an hour or an hour twice a week, there's not much longevity in doing it. If you can actually just 5-10 minutes, start your normal one, get to the class, 10 minutes early, and work in a specific area which you need to work 3 times a day. You like half an hour there.
Yeah.
It's basically it. And it's more about consistency as opposed to duration.
Yeah, so that's something I've always found interesting about that sort of side of things as well. Is that it's not so much like, you could go to the gym twice a week and get mad heavy or whatever. It's like actually you can do half an hour across a week and it'll make a world of difference to your performance as well.
Exactly.
I mean, I've gone through, I'm not so good at it at the moment, but I've gone through time periods of playing with like the mobility stuff and things, and I do feel much better after just like a pretty little amount of time putting the effort in, right?
Yeah, no, it makes a big difference. And there's a lot of evidence to say that if you can move better, you'll probably perform better.
It makes sense on paper. And you mentioned you also, and I know we've seen some facilities here, you do a lot of work around the recovery side of things as well. I know you've got the sauna and the cold plunge here and the massage and things like that. How important a role does that play?
So I think it plays a massive role, especially when people have all the other things down, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's very much you have your training management, you have your food intake, all those things, and then after you just want to be building as much of you want to be doing all the right things. So that is another center as such, where okay, I'm going to reduce my risk of injuries. I'm going to be able to perform actually a lot more relaxed in body and mind, because that makes sense. And thankfully we have the facilities to do so. It's I think if someone came into me, for example, and said, okay, my sleep is rubbish, my food is rubbish, I'm not really training in a consistent way. If I want a massage, probably got some other things to do. But if they're doing all those things already, that's a massive benefit, because then it's just going to be another 1% of that. Helps them perform. They're going to be able to go into an evening session, for example, a lot more refreshed compared to being like that. A lot of, and you have that throughout camps, and also it just helps to reduce risk of injury. That's the key role, trying to get people fit to get into a fight or to be able to perform. Again, we work with many different people right now. We've got someone, because there's a running season going on, runners who are coming in, and they just want to get to the marathon and get through.
Oh, yeah, of course, that's next weekend.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it's doing a lot of work around, if it's an injury or if they have an injury, trying to manage that. This is their fight camp. It's really unfight camp, it's their fight camp. And you get other people who aren't necessarily, you come to the gym recreationally, but then they need to perform in the meeting, for example. And that's just trying to get moving about body and mind state to be able to go and perform.
Yeah, that is interesting. Because I've never thought about it that way. Where you're right, it is all those things like the recovery stuff. It's almost the add-on at the end. It's like, well, you can't just like have a cop out. Like I do an ice bath once a week, so I'm good. I can eat a fucking McDonald's on the way in.
Yeah, exactly. It's all they are. But you need to get the principles and those.
And do you have a preference in terms of what sort of stuff you do recommend for people that are already, particularly fighters, obviously the martial arts? Do you have a preference in terms of the recovery that you do recommend? Do you like saunas, ice baths, massage, that type of thing, or is it a mix? Does it depend on what style people are working on? What's the sort of...
So I think it does depend on the individual, and even if ourselves as practitioners, we really have our sort of biases and sometimes do. But I think it's more individual that lies down to the plan. You get some people who love the leg compression, which is those massive boosts that cover your whole leg.
I've seen those. What do they actually do? I don't really know it.
So they're trying to reduce some of the legs and heaviness feeling you typically get.
Right.
Through the lymphatic system, which goes back to the hips. So it's just trying to do that. So they also say it increases the blood flow to the area just to help again recovery of exercise. So I quite like them, to be honest. Particularly after a sparring session, after a fight, I always go into them.
Would you pop straight, like you finish your sparring whatever and you take it straight on, or you do it at home in the evening?
I usually do it at home too. More times than not, I quite late on after I'm sparring. But if I had to do it every 20 minutes, I'd definitely. You have the cold plunges, which I'm not necessarily a fan of, although I've been thinking
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. I've done it a few times. I'm just such a coward. I hate the hold.
I don't like being cold.
Yeah.
But saying that, when I have done it, I feel great.
Same, absolutely. I'm well on board for the theory, but every time I do it, I'm like, this is a terrible idea. It's horrible. I can't bring myself to do it.
Yeah. So, but you get it been amazing.
Yeah, big time.
I think it does come down to the saunas are great for helping recovery. Also for fighters in particular, feet acclimatization, so when you're doing the sauna, particularly down, you do some sort of weight loss.
Oh, that's an interesting.
And you get some adaptations within the body and physiology when you do that regularly. And you sweat quickly more compared to if you don't.
I didn't realise that. So using the sauna sort of regularly, not even necessarily just for that weight cut bit, because I think we were talking a bit off camera earlier, is that tends to be the main use for a fighter. But actually, I've never thought about that. Getting used to being in the heat must be a massive thing, yeah.
Massive. And that's both physical and mental. Mentally being able to be in it. Also physically, there's good sort of adaptations with the body to be able to produce a faster accepting actually it's okay. Including the body now. So the body becomes really efficient in doing so.
And I guess that makes the actual weight cuts easier for a lot of folks.
Because in order to cool your body down, your body needs to sweat, so quickly you sweat, quickly you down. That's all. So
the less the cut is.
Yeah, the cut's always visual, but yes, relatively speaking. But I think it does down and down too.
Okay. And speaking on the weight cut side of things, I don't know how big a weight cut you are. That seems to vary based on different things.
Yeah.
But do you get very involved in that side of things? I know obviously personally as a fighter you must do.
Yeah.
But in terms of as a coach or as a physio, do you get very involved in the sort of weight cut and sort of helping people with that?
Yeah. So over the years, sort of the role sort of expanded more from let's go rehab into the performance side of things and leading into weight cuts as well, advice to the fights. Based on the fact that I've been part for a long time. And yeah, just going on various courses, I've got understanding of a bit more nutrition, what to pull, what not to pull, based on planning tactics. So yeah, got some guys who are part of the team. Some guys we had a couple weigh in a couple of days ago. Weighed in well, performed well, but they went.
Yeah, that's it. Makes such a difference. I mean, I don't really. I'm not much of a weight cutter because I'm too lazy and greedy. But when I have done it, it feels a difference from when you do it properly and when you don't.
Yeah. It's crazy because there's a lot of information. We live in a world where there's an abundance of information, but it doesn't always mean it's true.
That's it. That's what I found. I think there's almost too much information. Everyone's got a slightly different way of doing it, and then you're like, oh, I like the sound of that, and I like the sound of that, and then you mix two things that don't really make any sense.
Yeah, there is a bit of that, and that's the thing. It's trying to understand what it is, and again, being able to come from the business perspective or having an understanding of the implications. Like, okay, why am I reading that now, and where's the evidence for it? Why should I do it? And again, go back to clinical reason. Because sometimes someone will say X, Y, Z. I don't really know how that works, but people explain to me how it does. And if they say, well, I don't know, I was just told to, well, we need to do that. Yeah. Because again, everyone has the reason for doing it. So I'd like to think so. And if you do have a reason, absolutely fine. Because then we can discuss the logical reason.
Massively. I love that. That's a big part of the podcast for me as well, that I like to start with. I loved sitting down and talking to people that are experts in something that I'm like, I don't know anything about this. They like tell me and have people explain it, and I'm like, now I get how this works and that works, and it sort of adds up, and it changes how you look at things. And that's what I hope, like podcasts like this, talking to guys like you that do know what you're talking about, can be massively helpful for people, being able to actually hear and understand and think, oh yeah, actually that does make sense. Like we were talking about it. There's been a few times where I'm like, oh yeah, of course, like that makes sense.
I think it's nice to do and providing a platform to do so, I appreciate it. But it's trying to have an open mind, or make sure you have an open mind.
Yeah.
Actually, we don't know everything. I know I don't know.
Yeah.
It goes back to the land and we both butcher.
Yeah.
But understand that we don't know everything, but having an open mind and be like, okay, but actually that's a different perspective. And sometimes we're like, different perspective, I don't necessarily agree, but actually, different perspective, I'm going to learn something.
Yeah.
Or I'm more about it.
Yeah, there's always going to be something that you go, I'm not so convinced by that.
Yeah.
But it's something to at least think through and think about.
Yeah, and I'd say more in the martial arts space, you want to have a coach who has that same mindset.
I agree.
Because you have some coaches who are very quotation old school and don't necessarily want to try to adapt with the times and time.
Yeah.
And that becomes more of a problem and a hindrance for fighters.
Yeah, big time. You have people that are just locked into their way. This is how I've been doing it for so long. This is what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really take into account much sort of personal differences.
Yeah, and also you ask them why. Just usually because that's what I did.
That's what my coach done.
That's what I did. And it's like, okay, well, you're a bit more.
Yeah.
Don't wrong. I understand there's hard work.
Yeah.
So that does need to go along with being a fighter. Also, there needs to be some reason for it.
Yeah.
Particularly in today's day and age where there's so much advancement in sports performance and science.
Yeah, big time. And that's what I like about this sort of stuff that we've been talking about, is it's all science based, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, well, the body does X, Y, Z, and that's why this works, and that's why you need to do this. And the more that you learn, the more you're like, oh, actually, yeah, I need to change this. And hopefully every fight camp that you go into, or whatever task you've got ahead of you, hopefully you're adapting slightly every single time. Right?
Yeah.
I know every fight I've had, I've changed something going into it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing. Like, there's some I've gone in feeling great, some I've gone in going, oh, that was a terrible, terrible idea.
But it sounds like you're doing something else which you'll learn from the video, physio stuff, and which is reflecting on your practice. So you give the reason why you do something, and then after it's done, you reflect on how did it go.
Yeah.
Reflect after your fight. Okay, how did my camp go over that situation? And then constantly adapting after. And if you're not really testing or reflecting, you're just guessing.
Yeah.
So we've got to a position where we now bring a lot of performance testing to the group as well. We test VO2 max test, resting metabolic rates, nutrition, and the strength and power testing as well. So after each camp, we definitely retest the fight. Okay, how did we get to this point? Have you improved your numbers? Have you not improved your numbers? How did you feel throughout camp? Were there any injuries that we need to monitor, try to manage before you go into your next fight? Trying to take a really methodical approach to that.
That's interesting. I like that. I didn't realise you do that sort of stuff. Yeah, so you assess after each camp as well, or after each fight, I suppose.
Yeah.
How the stats are doing.
Yeah, exactly. How the stats are doing, but also just how the body is feeling, and before we put them into another fight. Because actually, then the body needs to be ready. A lot of times, like, coach will ask for another fight for you in 3 weeks' time. Okay, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, all right, cool.
You know, but seeing how the training has had an effect on their body, particularly with weight cutting, is quite important. But we always want to be trying to push the numbers, try to again fuel the body and improve the body.
And do you like a particular amount of time between fights as well? Either personally or professionally, I guess.
It just depends on the individual. I've had 3 fights in the last 7 months, so that is quite a busy schedule.
Yeah, busy, yeah.
It's a busy schedule. It does depend on what the person's goals are.
And how the fights are.
And how the fights are. Yeah, exactly. And also what else is going on in the person's life? Do they have enough going on outside to keep them busy or away from their training? You know, are they able to train for all the time? And I'd say in general, if you are just getting into it, get some main fights you can't really buy that experience.
Right.
But then after, as you continue to get more and more experience, you do need to be a bit more thoughtful and more about it, because typically things get harder. You typically will be cutting a bit more in general. You will be having slightly longer, more intense training periods. You will be trying to game plan for particular individuals. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you should be stopping training. So
Yeah.
it's always trying to constantly develop. And also, as you continue to get more experience, you do need to develop your skills. And in general, you can't really develop your skills with more training for a fight. Particularly in the higher level, you need to have periods where you just train your technique, improve your skill, and then go to another fight. Right. As opposed to constantly getting ready for a fight.
That learning time.
Yeah, because really, when you're getting ready for a fight, a lot of times sharpening what you're already good at, as opposed to working on things that you're bad at.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you need to have the confidence in what you're really good at, and take it to the fight, as opposed to don't really block the jab very well.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep doing that. And then you get hit with jab, like, I forgot how to find my 1-2.
Yeah. It's all live.
Exactly.
Awesome. And then I suppose before we go, because I'm conscious there's a class that will be coming in very shortly. For you personally, have you got any more fights coming up at the moment? Are you just chilling? What's on the cards for you?
So I'm trying to get a fight, hopefully soon. We are currently in April, so I'd like to fight in some June, July, August. Are sort of 3 sort of trying to get a fight in the summer, and then get another fight towards the end of the year. So hopefully 2 more this year, which will be 3 this year, which is okay. 4 would be ideal, but 3 is okay. Yeah, we'll see. If I can fight in June, that would be great, because then I can potentially fight again in September and then squeeze 1 more in. You know, that'd be great.
Cheeky one on the end.
Exactly. So it just depends on timing, opponents, dates, etc.
And is that, you mentioned a couple of different promotions, so it's not necessarily just fights, so you fight a few different places at the moment?
I'm not exclusive, so
okay.
I'm not signed to any.
Well, let's change that. Whoever's watching, I'm sure Dana White's tuning into this.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's more, and the reason why I decided to go that route to be a coach is more just trying to get fight activity. So yeah, you mentioned 3 fights in 7 months. I just want to be as active as possible within this period. And yeah, just continue to rack up the wins in MMA, because again, I've got a lot of experience, as you said, in striking, but this is a new chapter, and really I knew it was going to be a fast train, and I wanted to be, so I'm just trying to get as many fights as I can and just continue to grow.
Awesome, I love that. Well, before we wrap up then, where is the best place for people to follow you? I'll put the t-shirt stuff in the link, and all of your social medias and websites and stuff like that will be on whatever platform people are listening on. It'll be in the description. But where's the best place for people to follow you?
So for the physio side of things, it's going to be fighting physiotherapist on Instagram. That's probably going to change to T. But fighting physiotherapist. For my fight journey, it's going to be Yusuf Ali-Taleb. And then for the clothing, it's going to be Aspire, Be Inspired.
Perfect. All right, like I say, it'll all be in the description below. But Yusuf, thank you very much for your time and sharing all the knowledge. I really appreciate that, man.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for sticking with us as well. Apologies about some of the background noises there. Hopefully you still got a load out of it. I really enjoyed talking to Yusuf. He's got a huge wealth of knowledge, and there was a lot to be gained from that episode, in my opinion. As promised, in the description on whatever platform you're listening on, you can find all of the links to follow Yusuf and his journey. Make sure to drop him a follow on the social medias. Totally zero cost way to support him. Same applies for the podcast. Please make sure to drop us a quick follow on Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. We are there. It's all at CWAMA podcast, and it makes a great deal of difference. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.